BioBalance Healthcast, episode 239, Characteristics of People with Blood Type B.
BioBalance Healthcast features conversations about positive aging. Your hosts are Dr. Kathy Maupin, Medical Director of BioBalance Health and a leading expert in treating symptoms of aging, and Brett Newcomb, a licensed professional counselor.
We're going to be talking about blood types today, and what's important about blood types is what we want to share with you. Everybody has one. Many people do not know what theirs are, but current scientific information tells us that blood types can be used, or ought to be used, as biomarkers to help us learn more globally the kinds of conditions that you might have, the kinds of foods that you ought to eat, the way stress will impact you, the different mental and physical health concerns that you're more likely to have if you fall in the global category. So we want to make the warning that these kinds of information are sort of globally useful, not always specifically predictive or specifically indicative. That if we say, type B's manage stress better than most, then blood type B, then you can say, well, gosh, I handle stress really well. That may not be true for you. You may have learned not to handle stress well. You may have learned through growing up in your family to eat a lot of pasta with tomato sauce. And what we're going to tell you today is that tomatoes and tomato sauce isn't good for type Bs, and we're going to tell you why. So we're going to be looking at blood type B as a biomarker for exercise, diet, lifestyle, illnesses, what it can tell you.
Right. And to me, this is a cheap way, because it's like a $6 test, a cheap way of doing your genetics. And because they're on the same gene as the A, B, or O antigen, which is a protein. An antigen's a little protein that's stuck onto your red cells. So on the same gene that programs that, like the architectural plan for your body, is the gene for how your cortisol works, how the enzymes for cortisol work. In other words, that's your stress hormone. Epinephrine or adrenaline and cortisol are the two hormones that are secreted when you're under stress. So how long those hormones last in your system, how fast they're broken down, and in some cases how long they are sustained in your system determine how you feel under stress and how you handle it. So there's a mechanism we're talking about. We're talking about genes that are all piled up together with this blood type marker, which is ingenious, whoever figured this out. So, in fact, Dr. D'Adamo is the physician who wrote all the books about blood type, and he tied in all the research together, and he did his own as well. So it's not only how we handle stress, it's basically what our immune system, how it works, and what we are good at. Are we good at killing bacteria or viruses, or are we good at killing cancer cells? Believe it or not, here's how that works. If you have a type B, which is what we're going to talk about today, is type B.
Well, so what are the blood types?
The blood types are A, O, AB, and B.
A, comma, O, comma, AB, comma,
and B.
And B. So we're going to talk about type B today.
Right. That's right. Sorry. And in any case, going to immunity has a lot to do with what makes us sick and what kind of things we have to struggle with. So B's, okay, B proteins live on viruses, okay? So let's use this as an example. So my immune system looks at a virus, and I've got B proteins on my red blood cell, and it says, "Oh, that looks similar to
That's one of us.
That's one of us. I'm not going to attack it."
Right.
So Bs don't handle viruses very well. So even flu virus or herpes virus or like cold sores. I'm not talking about there's all kinds of herpes viruses, or any other kind of virus would be more difficult for a B to kill than for an A who has the protein A on it, looks at that virus and goes, not self, we're killing it. Okay, so it's a seek and destroy mission.
Yeah.
But A's have, and we'll talk about that at another time, but just in comparison, the A antigen or the A protein is on a lot of cancer cells. So A's have a lot more cancers because they view cancer cells as self. They go, oh,
So they don't fight it.
they don't fight it. So they're not going to increase their immune system to kill that cell. So it's not just about the number of T killer cells you have or the activity of them. It's really about what they're honed in on killing, and they're not going to kill some cell that looks like your own body.
So they're like targeted missiles. They go through your bloodstream looking for foreign substances that could be damaging to the body, and they attack those.
That's right.
But if it's like when a jet airplane in the Middle East is flying around, they send out a radar signal that says friendly or foe. I mean, it's a recognition pattern, so that you know not to arm up and go after them because they send the right signal.
That's what, yeah. They have some kind of little beeper that tells them that that's them. But in our bodies, we have a protein. So the only thing that happens with bees is when we finally make a response to a virus, we sometimes overreact, and then we kill the virus, but then we kill some of our own cells that look like the virus.
Okay.
So oftentimes that means autoimmunity, like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus or MS. So that's one of the ways immunity affects B blood types. The other thing that that is connected to all of this is the neurotransmitters. In our brain, we have chemicals like hormones, but they're neurotransmitters that communicate and bathe our brain in these chemicals, and they make us either happy, sad. They work between our neurons. They're dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. Serotonin, we know, is the antidepressant hormone. Norepinephrine is also an antidepressant hormone, but it also can be an anxiety hormone or neurotransmitter. And then there's dopamine, which we need for neuromuscular control. If you don't have enough dopamine, you have Parkinson's and you shake, kind of have a tremor or a tremor of your head like Katharine Hepburn. So all of these, the amounts of them, how just like cortisol, how long they last in between the neurons, and if they're metabolized quickly or slowly, are determined on the same gene as your blood type. So people have, like, bees don't have a big problem with neurotransmitters. In general, their neurotransmitters are pretty balanced. But some of the other blood types, like O's, have a problem with dopamine and have a problem, which leads to a problem with some like alcoholism, some kind of addiction. Excuse me.
So it's important to say, though, that bees can be depressed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not an absolute
I've been depressed, and I'm a bee.
specific. But it has to do, what's important here is to learn what you can do to maximize the positive outcomes, the positive benefits,
Right.
and minimize the negatives. For instance, what happens with bees very often when they get overstressed for too long, although they handle stress better than other blood types, globally, generally. You may not specifically be that example, but bees generally do. When they get overstressed, what happens is they lose motivation, they lose mental focus, and they just numb out. They become almost vegetative until their body can restructure itself and get them up for another round. So you can have these effects, or you can learn that you are subject to these effects and try to do some behaviors about the way you meditate, whether or not you do yoga, whether you exercise, what kind of exercise you can do, what you eat, how you sleep, your circadian rhythms. There are things that anybody can learn without expensive investments to do to moderate their potentiality.
But the reason the blood type's important, okay?
Yes.
So I have a friend who's an exercise expert, okay? And she's an O.
Yes. And you try to exercise with her.
And I try to exercise with her. She wants me to exercise with her.
Yeah.
She's killing me. I mean, because O's are full court press. They can run forever. Their stamina is amazing. They feel great when they run. And if I do that, that's not how I exercise the best. If I do that, then I get more tired afterwards. If I hit a certain level of aerobic exercise, I end up being more tired. It uses up my stamina.
So you're less likely to get a runner's high and burst into another level of performance.
Right, I don't.
Is more
I've
likely
never
to
gotten
have
a
that.
runner's high, even though I've in college I ran all the time. I mean, I ran for stress relief, but I never really got that high. It was just something to go do with nervous energy. Bees have to have, and I'm a bee, has to have balance. Like my perfect day is some creative activity, some exercise, but not necessarily running, maybe lifting weights or yoga or hiking or walking the dog or something like that. And then having some relaxation time where I get it all together, kind of get my brain together, and then some work.
That's actually what Dr. D'Adamo recommends as an exercise protocol for type Bs, that they need to do hiking, cycling, tennis, something that involves physical activity but also is a mental challenge or mental stimulation.
Yeah, mental focus is important. You have to be thinking about something or
Not
doing
just
two things at
mindless,
once.
repetitive
Right.
running where you hypnotize.
But what if you're a bee and your mother is an O and she says you need to be running? I guess your mother wouldn't be an O. Anyway, if you're a
your
bee,
stepmother is an O.
No, your mother could be an O because she could have a B and an O, and she gave you one of the O's. I mean, she could be an O and an O, and she gave me one of the O's, and your dad gave me the
Thank God
B.
for Gregor Mendel.
So yes,
75% chance of an O.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, she could be a no. But what if she tells me what's good for you is what's good for me, and what's good for me is running, and you have to run with me, and you have to do marathons, and I am miserable afterwards.
Right.
Miserable, and I don't feel good, and I haven't had my creativity, and I haven't stretched, and I haven't worked that day, and I haven't had any mental challenge. Mm-hmm. I'm not happy. So what I'm telling you is that this helps you figure out why everything your mother told you doesn't work if they're a different blood type. I mean, you have to find out what's good for you and try it. So activity-wise, lifestyle-wise, it's very important to know that and know you're not doing something wrong when, I get shamed because I don't run. I don't go do this. That it isn't good for me.
No.
And so some foods aren't good for you. That's the next step is not only is it our lifestyle, and not only is it how we live our life and exercise, but it's our food.
Chicken Parmesan would not be good for you as a mainstay of your diet.
No, and I love chicken Parmesan. And so
the reasons being chicken, high lectin, and tomato.
Okay, so lectins, let me just explain that. Lectins are proteins that are in foods. And lectins in certain blood types kind of coagulate your food so that it either penetrates your stomach wall and you get these food allergies, or it gloms up and then it causes antibody reactions within the gut or bacterial overgrowth. So it's not good to eat certain foods. And they figured this out, which is just amazing, that they can figure it out for certain types. Now, once again, we eat like our family. So my mom was AB, which she could eat more closely to me, but my dad was an O. Well, O's can eat. They can eat meat, cheese, eggs, tomatoes, all kinds of stuff. Varied, but more like the paleo diet. Mm-hmm. And my mom had very few things that she liked, and she was more of a vegan. So basically, we all had different needs in our foods. How do you cook for that? I mean, seriously, I'm trying to think about how I'm going to cook for that because my husband's an A. How am I going to cook for him and me? She should be a vegan. I should be a carnivore. So
when you were a puppy in the 1950s, they just cooked for convenience. This is what we eat in our house. And then if you had those maladaptations, having the wrong attitude about running or being too tired or being cranky or whatever, that was characterological. That was a failing of your character. You needed to muscle up. You needed to suck it up. We were eating get things over your special self
that were countering everything that we needed. But we learned it. It's a habit. And now even now, if it doesn't make me necessarily feel good, I don't even notice that.
Well, an example.
If it doesn't make me feel good,
nuts. almost all the diet things that you read say you ought to eat more nuts.
And I tell people that all the time.
But there are some nuts that bees don't do as well with as others. And if they learned as children to eat those nuts, and so when somebody says nuts, you think peanuts, and you eat peanuts. Peanuts are bad for you if you're a bee.
If you're a bee, you shouldn't eat peanuts if you're a bee, but you can eat almonds. It doesn't mean you're allergic to them. It means that they have
aren't as
lectins
good
in
for
them,
you.
and they are going to slow your metabolism down. So the good part about being a bee is that if you live your life in a balanced fashion, if you exercise the way you're supposed to exercise for your blood type, and if you get rid of a few things from your diet, which is tomatoes, wheat, doesn't mean we have celiac disease. It means wheat isn't good for us,
Right.
especially wheat germ.
Right.
So, and then we have peanuts and
Dairy. Milk.
Dairy's good.
It says milk here on my notes, but
No, milk is actually something we can actually use, and I think that was my mistype.
okay.
So milk is something that one of the blood types that actually can have milk,
Yeah.
and that doesn't mean you're not lactose intolerant. That's a whole different thing. But milk is good for you. So
amazing.
I am lactose intolerant. But I eat a lot of cheese and ricotta cheese and cottage cheese and
But
other
you can
cheese.
take a pill to deal with
for the
lactose intolerance.
It
and still
doesn't
get the
bother you
benefits
too
of
much
milk.
if you have curdled milk. If you have, like curdled milk, like if you're having cottage cheese or ricotta cheese. That
Cheese curds?
the culture in there has taken out most
Yeast
of the
culture.
lactose.
Yeah. All right.
So it's actually cultured. And cheeses are usually aged. So those are really good for bees. So if you follow the bee diet, and he has lots of other things that are beneficial for you and things that aren't, then bees should really not have a big weight problem. If they eat wheat and a lot of carbohydrates, that's a whole different story.
So, because a lot of the people that watch our podcast are people that are interested in your general practice of hormone replacement and tend to be a little older, menopause or beyond. I'd like to take a couple minutes and talk about strategies that those people can use to enhance their quality of life if they're blood type B. Eat right for strength and balance. And that means this: reduce carb cravings by eating 6 small meals a day instead of 3 large meals. So if you just eat a little bit and stop, you don't crave carbs, things like potatoes and pastas as much. When you're tired, eat some protein. Instead of eating a candy bar or even a piece of fruit, if you're type B, it's better if you just eat some protein, a piece of ham.
Eat cheese.
Eat, or nuts, whatever,
Yeah.
beans, whatever you're getting your protein from.
Oh, you're not supposed to have lentils or beans if you're a bee, so whole beans.
Okay. Don't undereat or skip meals. You have a tendency to do that. Oh, well, I'll just skip this one.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite problem.
Plan ahead to have snack foods on hand for a quick energy snack. Children that have juvenile diabetes, the schools, the teachers, everybody has to monitor their blood sugar and have things on hand like crackers or orange juice or something that can give them a surge when they start to go into a diabetic coma. So
Right.
you learn, plan ahead, and have these things for yourself. If you're a type B, you can plan ahead to have some quick.
Protein's harder to carry, though.
Well, it is, but again, it is doable.
Yeah, nuts are easy if you pick the right type.
Right. Obey your circadian rhythms. The old myth about everybody needs 8 hours of sleep every night, it is more true for blood type B.
And that's the one thing I didn't do. I was 29 years. I was a gynecologist obstetrician, so I'm up all night long.
Yeah.
And then I'm napping during the day and working during the day, and that's when I gained the most weight, was when I was doing that
There are
job.
strategies to adjust your circadian rhythm. If you have a night job and you're a type B, you can arrange the lighting and you can take melatonin. There are things that if you have to be a night person, you can do to help adjust that
Trouble is
circadian rhythm.
I wasn't either.
Well,
I was both.
I understand.
I was both day and night.
Right.
But if you have a night shift, yeah, the
But part of what we're
melatonin
talking
is
about here
really
is how you
good.
can make accommodations
Right.
if you know what your blood type is.
Right.
That can make your life a little smoother and easier. Seniors, if you're a type B, you need to, the older you get, if you're type B, the less your mind can slip away, or the more that your mind can slip away. So the things you need to do to fight for what you have. Do things like crossword puzzles or Sudoku. Do mental games. Do math facts in your head. To talk to yourself. Recite speeches that you have heard or read. Memorize poems. Anything that you can do to engage your mind when you're hiking. If you can recite the Declaration of Independence, or
12 cranial nerves.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends.
right, exactly. Whatever
Yeah.
you had to learn,
Yeah, whatever you had to learn.
did, or whatever you were interested in. Do a daily regimen of stretching, yoga, and meditation. Meditation and visualization are two of the strongest tools that you can learn to use to help reduce your stress level and keep your take little mini vacations in the course of a day. I mean, they used to say the same thing in the 1960s when the Canadians figured out the exercise that you can do sitting at your desk and in your car, take a little exercise break. And I'm blanking because I'm older. And
Well, I don't know what the Canadians did. I just know that we had
had a
the
name
president.
for it.
We had the president's
Physical fitness. That
fitness
was,
award,
that was
and
Bobby
that was
Kennedy.
actually a really good idea. And
Yeah.
no one cares really that much about physical fitness in schools anymore.
they don't want to pay for it.
I know, sadly.
Pay attention to hygiene and safe food preparation. You're more susceptible to bacterial infections than others.
As you
Your
get old.
sense of smell declines as you get old, and you don't recognize fresh as readily. So you may need to have a smeller. And somebody honey, smell this milk.
Have your-
Is it okay?
If I did that with my dog, it would be gone.
Exactly. No, a
this
person smeller. Your dog will say, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's good.
take
I'll
that.
eat it.
Maintain your circadian rhythm. Be sensitive to it. Go to sleep when you need to go to sleep. Get up.
My
be on a
perfect day
regular
would be
schedule.
going to bed at like 11, but
11 is
taking
what they
a
recommend.
2-hour nap,
Yeah.
or between 3 and 5. That would be the European schedule.
Yes.
That would be awesome.
And then finally, relax
Never
and meditate
happens.
regularly. So there are strategies that can improve your quality of life, your enjoyment of life, and decrease your risk exposure to negative impacts that can happen to blood type Bs. Now, this information in Live Right for Your Blood Type, in the book by Dr. Peter J. D'Adamo, is available for all the blood types. He breaks each one of them down and talks about the same kind of things that Kathy and I have been talking about today. So if you are interested, you can get his book and see what he has to say about your blood type. But please remember again, not to overgeneralize, not to overglobalize. You need to be, it's like, as a counselor, one of the tests that I would often ask people to take to provide information for us to work on is something called the MMPI, the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. And it has been normed on nearly 100,000 people. That many people have taken it. So when you take it, it's like 700 true-false questions. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. You get a profile back. What I was supposed to do with that, it would highlight certain things like suicidal thoughts. And I would say to you, Kathy, if you answered these questions this way, tens of thousands of people have answered this question this way, and they consistently have this concern. Do you have this concern? And you would say yes or no. And then I would take that at face value. And if you said no, then okay, you're an exception to the rule. So that's good. That's fine. We know that now. We can work around something else. But if it's true for you, then we want to face that so that it doesn't blindside you. So they're not absolute. You have to check and see, does that fit me in the way I live?
And if you have, I don't have a lot of viral infections. That I don't get the flu. I, in general, don't have a lot of those
Because
kind
you
of
do a lot
infections.
of those compensatory strategies.
Right.
The way
I may
that you
not
eat,
even
the way that you exercise.
the way I eat, or I also take an immune complex, which is colostrum. It's cow colostrum, chewable, and whenever I start getting sick, that helps build my immunity to a virus. So I don't have to depend on my own body to do it. It gives you IgA, which is in your lungs and your intestinal tract, so you can fight it. So there are ways to, if you know what your weakness is, there are ways to compensate for that, and that's why we're talking about this. So you can live your life in a very healthy and productive fashion without letting diseases kind of move in on you and you go, oh, I'm so surprised. Why did I get this? So if we think we're fighting everything, if I think I'm fighting cancer, which is very low in bees, and bacterial infections, and if I'm trying to fight it all, I don't have enough energy to fight it all. If I know what I'm fighting, that my weakness is, it's much easier for me to fight that than have to think about all of this, right? So that's what this is doing, or I want it to do for you, is to take a look at his book and then see what your weakness is by your blood type. And you can even get your blood type done. You can order them on Amazon, a little blood type test. It takes a while to get because we were trying to get one for Brett and it's been over a week, but we'll get it. And you just stick your finger and do this little chemistry test, and you can tell your own blood type, so you don't have to go somewhere to get that. And then you can see where you stand. You probably would know if you think back about your history, but we don't always think about that. And know that your parents and your children may not be the same blood type, so you're going to have to kind of examine the family meal and special, different food for different people in the family. But in any case,
So when I was growing up, and my dad used to say, we don't run a short order cafeteria here. Everybody eats what's put on the table. He might have been wrong.
well, he didn't run it. He's not going to run it. He didn't really have the time or the energy to do that because he was taking care of you guys. So
Yeah, he didn't ever say eat it, you'll like it. He said eat it, you'll live till morning.
which explains a lot.
Yeah, it explains a lot. Anyway, thank you so much for listening.
Email your questions or comments to podcast@biobalancehealth.com. You can find the BioBalance Healthcast on iTunes and on YouTube. For more information about bioidentical hormone pellet therapy and other reverse aging solutions, visit biobalancehealth.com or call 314-993-0963. You can find Dr. Maupin on Twitter @Dr. Kathy Maupin and on Facebook at facebook.com/biobalancehealth. Find Brett Newcomb at brettnewcomb.com.